Why have we come to earth? Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Good morning. So the talk today was supposed to be the last of the Emma Curtis Hopkins talks called The Way of Wisdom. And then Holly Day, who's playing music at the second service, and if you want to have some good music, stick around for second service. She's got her 5-piece band with her and backup music and stuff like that. Said, well, you know, I'm doing some songs on the shadow. I've been doing some shadow work lately, kind of inspired by the works of Debbie Ford, the books of Debbie Ford, and so I'm doing some songs on the shadow. And then another Deb Black, who was the coordinator for last night's wonderful dinner, said, well, I'd like to leave the decorations up. Can we leave the decorations up so people can enjoy them? I said, okay. And then my wife said, you're not going to do that things that go bump in the night talk after Halloween, are you? You got to do that before Halloween. So I decided to pursue the way of wisdom and follow all this advice that I got. And so we're doing next week's talk today, and we'll do the way of wisdom next week. So come back for that talk then. But my talk today is called Things That Go Bump in the Night. Don't you like that? Yes. Thank you. Well, hopefully you're more awake than I am right now. So several of us were here quite late last night, as Diana alluded to. So we normally are the happy, happy, joy, joy church. We're sometimes accused of being too much that, right? Too positive, everything's wonderful. It's all good. And so once in a while, though, we do have to take a look at our shadow side. It's actually healthy to take a look at the shadow. As today's reading implied, you know, we have stuff that sits in our subconscious mind that blocks the pure flow of spirit. And frankly, sometimes the only way to deal with that is to look at it and to declare it as not true, but we have to deal with it, right? And so what we're going to do today is to take a look at one of these particular things. See, some of these things we have in our unconscious are individual things. They're personal beliefs. They're based on individual experiences. And some of them are collective consciousness things, okay? What Ernest Holmes calls the race mind or race thought, and they're more universal in nature. And they surround us. And sometimes because they surround us, they're taken for granted. We never question them. We never think about them. We're just simply in this soup that we've all agreed that, oh yeah, this is so. And so I wanted to take a look at one of the kind of classics of that today. And that is out of the Bible, one of the books that oftentimes is used the most to scare the most people, and that is the very last book in the Bible, the book of Revelation. Okay? And Revelation has given us some wonderful consciousness gifts, right? It's given us the mark of the beast. You know, you don't have 666 as your phone number, right? You know, or your address or anything. It's given us the Whore of Babylon. It's given us Armageddon, the end of the world, and the signs and the symbols of the end of the world. It's given us, that was a setup for the rapture. The rapture only came about the last 150 or so years, but it's the setup for the rapture, which, so many people are waiting for. It's given us the imagery of the lake of fire, the word the apocalypse. It's given us the 7 seals, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and finally the expectation of the second coming of Christ. Right? All that. Isn't that wonderful gifts to give? And you know what? We all have that running around in the back of our minds at some point in time and somewhere to some greater or lesser extent. It's sitting there. And so the message of this that many people interpret from this book is that Jesus is coming back soon, and you better be ready or you'll be in big trouble. Big trouble. It gives us this idea of a scary God, a punishing God, a God who, if you don't believe in his Son, is going to throw you into a lake of fire for all of eternity where you will suffer forever. And it gives us the idea of the warrior Jesus, which is not what he taught. riding across the sky with his sword and ready to strike everything down and his armies and all that stuff. So we laugh at this book, and we sometimes attempt to ignore this book, but it surrounds us in our culture. In case you haven't noticed, anybody pay attention to some of the stuff it surrounds us in our culture, and it has seeped into our subconscious beliefs in very subtle ways. So I wanted to take a look today to see if we can unravel a little bit of the effects of that. And some of us, if we've never even thought about it, sit there and go, a lot of people just sit there and go, I don't even want to deal with that book. It is so over the top. What the heck is that thing about? What I want to say is we're going to take a light look at the book today. Okay? Because this would take about a year's worth of classes to actually really look through and to really get, out of. But I only have 20 minutes, so we're going to take a lightweight look at that. I'm going to start off with a quote from a Bible scholar named Raymond Brown. He says, "Revelation is widely popular for the wrong reasons. For a great number of people read it as a guide to how the world will end, assuming that the author was given by Christ detailed knowledge of the future that he communicated in coded symbols." Now, you've probably heard that belief, right? You may not believe it, but you know people who believe that that's really what this book is about. Okay? The book has always been controversial. It was actually one of the last books to be canonized. As late as the 8th century, I think it was still not officially included in the Bible by a lot of different denominations. So it took a while. Certain bishops said, even told their congregation, don't read that book. It was kind of on the banned book list for a long time because it's so difficult to grasp. So let's see if we can unravel this a little bit. The word apocalypse, which this is also called the book of the apocalypse, the word apocalypse, most of us think that means something like the fiery end of the world, right? All it really means, it's a Greek word that says revelation. It's an unveiling, it's a disclosure. That's all the word means. Okay? So if I tell you something, I'm giving you an apocalypse. If I tell you a little, reveal something to you, I'm doing an apocalypse. Now it also describes a particular style of writing that was popular, and was popular in the Jewish culture between about 200 BC and about 100 AD, sort of in there. And this book was written, by the way, in 95 AD, just so you kind of get a perspective. And to put that in perspective, in roughly right around 70 AD, the Romans had come in and torn down the Temple of Jerusalem, okay? And so the whole Jewish culture was still, appalled, aghast, angry, hurt, torn apart over this. This was their central temple. This was the core of their entire, existence as a people. And the Romans had come in and torn it apart, okay? So they're still reeling from that. You need to know that as part of this setup. So we have this particular style of writing, and what it is it's visions either of a heavenly world, this is what the world is like there, when we get there, or it's a vision of God overtly coming in and turning over and currently kicking out the evil powers that are ruling right now. Okay? So that's what the apocalyptic writings are. It's either a vision of what heaven is like when you're going to get there, or and God's going to come back and establish that right here on earth and kick it out. Now, Revelation is not the only book that's written like this. The second half of the book of Daniel, which was written about 200 years before the birth of Christ, also has actually a lot of the same imagery in it. In fact, it's said that this book of Revelation borrows about 65% of its imagery from previous books, mostly the book of Daniel. And Daniel was supposed to happen 2,000 and some odd days from the time it was written. That's when God was supposed to come in and kick the whoever it was back in those days. I think it might have still been the Romans. But whoever it was in those days was supposed to kick him out. Now that didn't happen, right? You don't have any stories of God coming down on fiery chariots and doing all this. It didn't happen. We'll talk about that later. But it had a significant influence on Revelation. John of Patmos, who wrote this book, is writing to 7 specific churches in what he calls Asia. Asia at that time was just about anything east of Israel. Okay? It wasn't China, it wasn't Japan, it wasn't Korea or Vietnam or any of those places. It was anything just a little bit east. It's what today we would call the near Middle East. Okay? So it's just the churches that are kind of over there. And those churches mostly consisted of people who had not grown up Jewish. They had grown up either in their particular culture or they had grown up under Roman influence because they've been under that for a while. So they had no knowledge of the book of Daniel. So he could recycle material. See, it's like being a screenwriter for a television show, and you're going to go into a market that's never seen any of your previous work, and you have to recycle the same material over again. It's like being a minister. Because I've done things that go bump in the night in a previous church, not this particular talk, but some of this, So, but it's new to you. So this is all new to the people he's writing to, all of it. So there's three ways, or there's probably more, but there's three ways I want to look at of reading this material. Number one is called the futurist way. The futurist way says that this is the stuff that's going to happen. What it says is the Bible is infallible. Everything in the Bible is absolutely true and must happen. That's point number one. Point number two is this hasn't happened yet. Therefore, it's going to happen. It has to be going to happen. Okay? Because it can't be, if it's all true. Remember our assumptions from the four agreements a month or so ago? Okay, assumption, therefore. Okay? So this reading of it being the futurist only became really popular in the last 1.5 centuries. This is not always how people read this book. So let's take a look at some effects of reading it this way. Most of you are pretty familiar with this process, but let's take a look at the effects. So the gospel, instead of becoming the teachings of Jesus or about the teachings of Jesus, about how to live your life, suddenly becomes you can be saved from God's about to happen wrath by strongly believing in Jesus. Not necessarily following his teachings, just by believing in Jesus. Remember, a lot of your fundamentalist Christian friends will ask you, have you let Jesus into your life? Have you found Jesus? Have you all that stuff? It's not about have you found what he's teaching. It's about just do you believe in him? That's the core. That's what the gospel is considered. Do you believe in him? And so what that does is creates a special group of believers who will be saved. And then there's the rest of us, right? And they will spend all eternity up in heaven looking down at us in the lake of fire going, "Nah, told you so. We're right. You're wrong." Am I right? You're correct about that? You've noticed this? Okay. So that's number one effect. Number two effect, life on earth is not important. It's about to come to an end anyways. Jesus is coming any day now. Or a few times previously he was supposed to be coming. And there'll be more of those days. So why bother? Why bother with social justice? Why bother with the environment? Why bother with anything? Because Jesus is coming back any day now to kick butt. And all this is going to be taken care of, pardon my language. Number three effect out of this. Oh, by the way, number two effect, let's take number one and number two and combine them. Because there are a number of people, especially, there's a whole movement that's trying to put people in high places in the government to make Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon, the final battle happen. It's supposed to start in Israel. And there are people who want to make this happen. Let's bring it on. We're ready to be saved. Let's get it going. Let's get those guys out of here. We want to go to heaven right now. And so there are people who are actually trying to make it happen, as well as people who are trying to say it's going to be happening on this day. Number three, we are constantly interpreting current events as signs and symbols. So we can't just look at a current event and say this is a current event and what do we need to do about it now? It's a sign or a symbol of the end of the world, right? You've heard this? Every earthquake, every tornado, every hurricane, I'm sure somebody's interpreted Patricia as, some sort of a sign from God as more of the end of the world. Okay? And so we've heard this. We've had, we get to kind of joke about it, but the people who, what was the guy that May 21st of a few years ago, the world was supposed to come to an end. He had it all calculated out. As a friend of mine said, up until May 21st, you were delighted to be a Christian, and on May 22nd, you were embarrassed to be a Christian, or that kind of, believe in that stuff. Okay? There was a whole series of books in the 70s that were very popular called they started off with a book called The Late Great Planet Earth. And it had a whole bunch of predictions and tried to make the European Economic Union was part of the 10 something or others, the 10 devils or whatever it was, and submarines and nuclear bombs were part of it. And this person had a whole concoction out of the signs of the end times right here, right now. And actually was a bestseller of, quote, nonfiction, on the New York Times bestseller list. The problem was that as he moved the books along, he eventually predicted the world would end in 1984, and shortly after 1984 came the book sales plummeted for some reason or other. So that didn't happen. But we've had all this stuff, and so everything is a sign or symbol of the end of the world and of God's wrath. And then number 4, it's all up to God anyway, so why bother? Nothing I can do. God's going to sweep it all clean anyways. Why can I bother? Why should I bother? And so this sets up a whole kind of fatalistic look at life. I'm not really engaged fully with life here in front of me as it is. One of the things that we teach in this teaching is that be here now, be present with what is. Okay? And what this whole setup is you don't have to be present with what is, because Jesus is coming back and he's going to fix it all. So I don't have to. I don't have to do a thing. Jesus is going to take care of it. So that's number 1 view, the futurist view. Number 2 view, the historical view. The historical view says that this was a work that was written for the people of this John's time. It was written to the 7 specific communities in Asia that he names at the very start of the book. And he tells them these are events that are going to happen within the lifetime of the people who heard this. They didn't read this, by the way. This was a letter that John sent out to these 7 churches, and it would have been just read in the churches to people. Most of the people didn't read or write. Okay? So it would have been read in its entirety to them and then discussed afterwards. And so what he's saying is, and he's said to these churches, it's like, a couple of them you're doing great and just kind of tighten it up over here. A couple of you, you're kind of getting marginal over here and you need to really tighten it up. And a couple of you, man, you're messed up over here and you really need to get it together. And what he's saying is, you need to hang in there. You need to keep the faith. You need to hang on to your Christian principles, because a lot of what was happening was the people were being tempted to go back to the Roman style of life, which was different than the Christian style of life. And he's trying to encourage them to stay fast to their principles, to hang in there. And so he gives this, this whole thing about how God will soon act to overthrow the rule of Rome and the Caesars. Okay? And that's what he's trying to inspire them to do. Hang in there until this happens. There's a problem with this and the way that it's interpreted in the futurist movement. He's warning these 7 churches of something that's impending to happen. But today we say, he's warning these 7 churches, and here's how that would sound. Either you get it together now, or 2,000 years from now, Jesus is going to come back and he's going to kick the holy you-know-what out of everybody, especially that United States of America over there. Okay, we're talking about 100 AD, right? Okay. To them, the world isn't a whole lot bigger than the Sinai Peninsula. It's still flat with a dome over it. Okay? And if you said United States of America, they'd be sitting there going, what? Who are you talking about? Other side of the world? There is no other side of the world. It's up, okay? It's like this. If you were disciplining your kid, you would say, if you don't stop doing that, 200 years from now, I'm going to spank you. Okay? That's the problem with taking it from the futurist point of view, is John is trying to admonish and inspire these churches in the now, but we take it and say, oh yeah, but let's apply that to 2,000 years away. He wasn't writing to us. He wasn't writing about us. None of this is about to happen. What this is known as is what's called a failed prophecy. There's several of them throughout the Bible. Now, the problem with admitting that there's a failed prophecy is, if you think the Bible is infallible, you have a conflict going, right? And so what that starts to say is the Bible wasn't written by the hand of God. It was actually a human product written by people, and it could be mistaken. Take a breath. And the problem is that a whole lot of people don't want to admit that. And so we cling to this view because it's the only logical way to view this. Everything in the Bible is true. This hasn't happened, so therefore it must be going to happen, no matter how nonsensical that is. Are you with me? Yes. Okay. So this whole process that we've been living under the fear of is a fiction. It is something that John was inspiring them to, 2,000 years ago. And when it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen. The world goes on. The Romans continue to rule for a while. About 300 years later, about 200 years after that, the Roman rule kind of started to crumble, but it had nothing to do with Jesus coming down or 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or any of that stuff. It just kind of naturally unfolded. So that's the historic point of view, and it's a powerful way to unravel the stuff in our mind, the subconscious fears of the lake of fire and the Armageddon and all this stuff that people are trying to do. It's like, wait a minute, this is a beautiful made-up story. It's very powerful. The imagery is fantastic. All the creatures and all the stuff in it. But this isn't real. And it certainly isn't going to happen in our time, anywhere near our time. It was supposed to happen 2,000 years ago. It didn't. There is another way of viewing this, and it's the mythopoetic way. And as you know, I like mythopoesis, as they call it. So it can be viewed as the tale of the spiritual journey. You might have noticed that your spiritual journey, and I know all of you are on a spiritual journey, has occasional little hardships and bumps in the road in it. Okay? And then other times where you triumph over those. Yes? Okay? So this is the tale. This can be a very dramatic tale of the spiritual process. And so as we move from living in the world to living in spirit, we begin to experience this. And it's challenging sometimes, isn't it? To live in the world of spirit when the world of the world calls us. And so we can establish ourselves as living in the New Jerusalem, which is the city of spirit, the city of high consciousness, or we can establish ourselves as living in Rome, which is the city of the world, and what we talked about last week, the city of effect versus the city of cause. This is that same, in a way, you can say it's the same talk. It's the same way of presenting it, just with a whole lot more drama. And so we have this journey that we make where we go and we're trying to move from Rome to the New Jerusalem, to the high consciousness. And we have our setbacks, and we have our stuff that happens, and we have all sorts of challenges that come up. Because the city of Rome looks really real, doesn't it? Feels really real in our lives. Right now in our church, we're looking at our checkbook and going, ew, that city of Rome is feeling really real right now. We just had to cut back everything about 10% for salaries and stuff. That's why we're taking Fridays off. We're taking 10% off of the staff salary, 10% off my salary, because we need to increase. We need to do something with where we're at. But all that is still the city of Rome. It's not the New Jerusalem, as we still are working from consciousness, which is what that is. So this journey, this story, is a powerful story in imagery and symbology of moving from the city of Rome to the city of Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, where we're going in consciousness. So do you see that with that? Okay. There's a challenge with that, because this particular story taps into an ancient archetype, and that is the cosmic conflict myth. And if you've studied history, if you studied mythology throughout history, there's a whole lot of myths that have the cosmic combat, the battle in heaven going on between good and evil. Michael and Lucifer, Thor and all the and the Greek gods and all these different gods. It's throughout all the cultures that there is a battle going on for good versus evil in the cosmos. We get to be just kind of watchers and at the effect of this whole process happening. And it's the battle of good and evil. And this belief system lives in our consciousness. We believe that there's a battle for good and evil in many cases. You've kind of noticed that that's pretty prevalent in our culture, right? I know none of you believe that, but it's pretty prevalent in our culture. Okay? It's why we get so vehement about our politics right now, is we believe there's a battle for good and evil going on. And who gets to define what's good and who gets to define what's evil is, each person's idea, but that's what's going on. That's why some people are getting so angry about that stuff and so spun up about it. We love stories of the triumph of good, don't we? We always like the good guy. I mean, it's like, all the television shows we have are usually good triumphing over evil. There's a few that are taking the alternate point, and there are a few that are, drawing, making it a little less nebulous who is good and who is evil. But a lot of the stories still are, within 1 hour we can solve any murder, resolve any problem. But I have a question for you. Is this battle real? If we teach and we believe that God is pure love, and by the way, that's what Jesus taught. God is pure love. One of my favorite stories, as you know, is the prodigal son, where the son falls away, as you might say, from the father. The father never stops loving him. Eventually the son works his way back. The father never stops loving him. There's no punishment. There's no earning his way back. There's none of that stuff happening. Every mystic who's ever touched the infinite has touched that God is love. Pure, pure love. And so if there's only pure love, can there be a battle for good and evil? And my vote is no. There is no battle for good and evil. And yet that lives deep within our consciousness that we have to fight for this. Instead of just simply opening to, what is the love? How can I be open to the love? How can I just simply recognize that, guess what? I already live in the New Jerusalem. This is my steady state. And so the invitation today is to wake up to that state. To wake up to the fact that you already live in the New Jerusalem and there's no Armageddon necessary to get there. And to let go of all the fears and all the stuff that is running through our culture so that you're not affected by that. So that when you hear other people talking about that, you can stay stable and recognize what's going on and say, you know what? That's not the truth. Here is the truth. So this week I want to invite you into your spiritual practice to just notice the themes from this story. Notice where they exist within you, how they play out in your life, and notice where you see them all around you. Just notice them. Even if you don't know the story, you know enough, you've gotten the terminology enough just from what I described to notice how many times we hear the word apocalypse, or Armageddon, or the lake of fire, or the second coming. Just being aware of that. Secondly, notice where I believe there's a battle of good and evil within me, or around me, or that I have to engage in somewhere. Notice where I believe there's this battle of good and evil. Just notice it. And then finally, begin to remember that God is good and only good, love and only love. And begin to allow that to be more deeply than ever before your reality, your how you live, your steady state, that you are living in this New Jerusalem. I want to close with a story, and I read this story a few weeks ago, but it's such a powerful story and so perfect for this that I want to read it again. And it's called The Gates of Hell. It comes from Words from Silence by Leonard Jacobson. A man was searching for that which cannot be found, when suddenly he arrived at the gates of hell. He was about to enter when he was stopped by an old magician. "You have no weapons," said the magician. "Take this sword. It will protect you from the evil forces that lie within." "I do not believe in evil forces," said the man, "so I have no need of weapons." "Only a warrior can enter the gates of hell," said the magician, slowly drawing the sword from its scabbard. And as he did so, a terrible demon appeared before him. "Behold the power of the sword," said the magician, and with one swift blow he killed the demon. "Now will you take the sword?" he asked. The man shook his head. "Are you blind?" asked the magician. "Can you not see that with this sword the demon was slain?" "Are you blind?" replied the man. "Can you not see that with this sword the demon was created. And he walked past the magician through the gates of hell as if they existed only as an illusion in the minds of men. The whole battle of good and evil, whether we put it in terms of Revelations, Armageddon, whatever, exists only in the minds of men. It's not the truth of God. And so I invite you this week to go for that truth of God. To start to, when you want to get caught up in a battle for good and evil, catch yourself, just notice. Love yourself, no beating yourself up, right? Okay? And just move back to that place and say, wait, time out. There's only good. There's only love. There's only God. There's only this one life. That's it. So that's what my invitation for you this week. Will you be willing to play with that to the best of your ability? Great, thank you. Let's move into prayer. And so from that awareness, I just simply remember, indeed, that there is only one life, one love, one infinite good. There is not one and something else. There is just the one. If it is infinite, there is nothing else. And the nature of this one, every mystic who's ever touched it, is love. Pure, deep, beyond our comprehension love. And we are immersed in that. Because it is infinite, we have to be one of it. We are immersed in this field of love. And so I speak my word that we let all the idea of good and evil, battles, struggling, fall away from our consciousness. We let all these things that have gone bump in our nights fall away and see them in the light of the day for what they truly are, nothing. As Emma Curtis Hopkins would say, your name is nothingness. And so I know that each of us, as we awaken to that, awakens to the truth. We live in the light, we live in the love, we live in the glory, we live in the good that is what we call God's Spirit, the infinite one. We already live in this. We're here now. We don't have to go somewhere. We don't have to do something. We don't have to fight something. We just are that here and now. And so I know that each of us, to whatever degree we can, accepts this and allows this to infuse our lives with that love, with that joy, with that good, with that divine nature, to recognize that we are expressions of that divine nature, undifferentiated, unseparated by anything. And so for this, I'm grateful. For each of us who remembers this, to whatever degree we remember it, I'm ever so grateful, because even the smallest degree creates a shift in our lives and a shift in our universal consciousness. So I'm grateful for the remembering. I'm grateful for each of us who lives from this consciousness of knowing that we live in love, that we live already in this new Jerusalem. And so I release this word into a law that moves it into form, moves it into expression, moves it into experience in our lives in the most beautiful, perfect, and powerful ways possible. And it does. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you.
To love, serve.